So everybody, it's Xilicks here, and welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 build video. Today we're going to be looking at a condition tanky variant of Ranger. Now I say tanky leniently because you're not going to be crazy tanky. Like you can see our health there. We're only at 16k if you round up, but we are going to have a decent amount of toughness and a lot of survivability and big condi damage. So I put out the Power Ranger build a few days ago, and I decided, hey, you know, Condition Rangers where I started out in PvP, I feel like all the updates Condition Ranger has received have been beneficial. Let's make a new Condi Ranger build in Heart of Thorns and see how it goes. So first things first, let's take a look at the pets. I'm going to be going with the Juvenile Reef Drake to give us some access to Confusion. And then the Drake's attacks, yeah, there it is. It also has weakness. That's what I was looking for. Now, these do a fair amount of damage, and he also has weakness. Weakness is really nice for what we're trying to do. Now, the weakness isn't going to be popping all the time, but it is also a blast finisher, and we have some fields with the build. So that blast finisher is nice. The weakness is nice. It's going to help us live longer. And, you know, this Drake has a lot of vitality, 22k health, decent toughness, and decent damage. And it's got that nice 5 stacks of confusion, which is going to be really nice at keeping us alive, because whenever enemies get confused, oftentimes they stop attacking, so it's something to keep in mind. Next up is the Bristleback. The Bristleback has some access to bleeding, which is going to make it good for a Condi build, and the Bristleback is just a staple to Ranger nowadays, I feel. It's just such a good pet. I know the Smoke Scale is also really good, but personally, I prefer the Bristleback and the Reef Drake. There are a few other pets you can run. Some of the birds, some of the spiders are good. It's really just up to your personal preference, but these are the pets I feel work best with the build. Now, looking at our sigils, amulet, all that stuff. On our Shortbow, we're going to be running the Earth Sigil to get bleed on crit, and the Agony Sigil to increase our bleeding duration. Then with the Axe Torch, we're going to be running Earth to get bleed on crit, and the Smoldering Sigil to increase our burning duration whenever we are on our Axe Torch set. Now, with these weapons, you can kind of swap them up if you want. Other options are the Sword Dagger. So you could run like Axe Dagger, Sword Torch, or you could run Sword Dagger, Axe Torch, or Shortbow, Sword Dagger. Personally, I feel Condi builds for Ranger require at least a Torch. I prefer Shortbow because of its burst application of bleeding, the access to poison, and the kiting abilities you gain with the Shortbow. But really, it's personal preference. And then I go with the Axe because it combos nicely with the burning field of the Torch. You can get some nice extra burns while using the Axe. And the Axe has access to a little bit of bleeding and a chill, which is pretty nice. Looking at our amulet, I am using the Wanderer's Amulet. I believe this is one of the new amulets. This did cost me 10 gold, so if you don't want to shell out 10 gold, I'm going to go over your other options. But first, the reason I picked the Wanderer's Amulet is because every single one of those 4 stats it gives us is very useful to this build. We like Precision because we have Bleed on Crit. We like Toughness because it's going to help us live longer. We like straight Condi damage because it's going to be making us do more damage. And then, of course, we like Expertise because it's going to be making our conditions last longer. Now, as far as I said with other options, Carrion Amulet is pretty good for this build. You're not going to be getting Bleed on Crit with the Carrion Amulet, so keep that in mind. You may want to switch some of the traits if you want to go with the Carrion Amulet. Now, the best option beside this one, I believe, if I can find it, would be... I can't find it. No. This one would be good. The Sage's Amulet could be kind of good, but... where is it? Yeah, okay, here it is. So Sinister is just the raw damage output. If you want to be doing as much damage as possible, Sinister. Viper is also very high damage output. It's really up to you which you think is better. Viper is going to be giving you more Condi duration, where Sinister is just going to giving you more Condi damage. I'd probably recommend Viper over Sinister if you choose one of these two, but that's up to you. Then the other option is the Mercenary Amulet, which is similar to a Dire Amulet. But again, this does not give you the precision. So all in all, I'd recommend shelling out the gold for the Wanderer's Amulet. It's probably going to be your best option for this build, and it's what I'm going with. Then for runes, I go with crate runes because they combo really nicely with our entangle. It's going to be giving us torment, poison, and bleeding whenever we activate our entangle. Also, if they dodge roll our entangle, the bleed, torment, and poison will still hit them. So that's something to keep in mind, because if you're in a team fight and you drop an entangle, right? Let's say there's 3 people you're fighting. One of them is most likely to dodge the entangle, and you know that with these runes, you'll be applying at least some damage to them. It won't be a total waste of your elite skill. The other advantage to these runes is they're going to be giving us a lot of bleed duration and extra condi damage. So it's a nice pick, but for some other options, if you don't like these, you can go with the, I believe the not nightmare. The undead runes. There it is, the undead runes. Because we are running toughness. Whenever I equip this, you'll see we'll be getting more armor, more toughness. We'll also be getting more condition damage, but we are losing a lot of condition duration with these runes, and we're also losing the synergy with entangle. So crate is a good option. I believe another option would be scavenger runes. Yeah. If you're running the Carrion amulet, I would suggest scavenging runes because I feel these are going to be better with Carrion by a lot. So yeah, if you're using Carrion amulet, or if you're using the like the mercenary amulet or whatever it's called, no, that's not it. Yeah, if you're using the mercenary amulet, I'd also recommend the scavenging runes. Now, looking at our traits, we're going to be going with Wilderness Survival, Skirmishing, and Druid. So Druid is obviously new to Heart of Thorns. If you don't want to use Druid, or if you can't use Druid, I'd recommend Beast Mastery, or yeah, probably Beast Mastery, and then you can kind of just pick the traits on your own. But for Wilderness Survival is really good for Condi builds because it makes you, as it says, more survivable, but there's also some nice Condi traits. So for one, we're going to be getting extra endurance regen, we're going to be getting protection when we dodge roll, and we get bark skin, which is going to be taking, or it's going to be making us take less damage when we're at a high health threshold. So these 3 traits are pretty nice for keeping us alive. As I said, this build is kind of on the tankier side. It's not a full-out Condi damage build. I mean, it is, but it has defensive capabilities. The trait I'm going to pick here is Expertise Training. This is going to make our pets do extra damage, and their duration of their conditions are increased. So the bleed on our Bristleback and the confusion on our Reef Drake is going to last longer. As far as other traits, I don't think any of these are worth it. Obviously, you don't want fall damage, and the regen could be nice, you know, but not really needed for this build. Next up, ambidexterity. Try and say that 5 times fast. But yeah, so it's extra Condi damage when we're wielding a torch or a dagger. This trait, hands down, is the best you're going to get. You know, extra damage, reduced cooldown. It's just the best for a Condi build. And then in the last line, there's actually a couple options here. So Empathetic Bond is a very good trait. It's going to be removing 3 Condis every 10 seconds and putting them on our pet. The next option is Wilderness Knowledge. I recommend this trait because it gives Fury, and we want to get Bleed on Crit. So that kind of coincides with each other. This is also reducing the recharge of our survival skills, and I recommend to use 4 survival skills, so that's very nice. And it makes our survival skills remove conditions, so we're not going to get Condi bombed very easily. The last trait is Poison Master. I used to use Poison Master on an old build. I still would recommend it, but I feel the other trait's better. Maybe if you're using Carrion Amulet, Poison Master would be better, but that's up to you. I recommend Wilderness Knowledge. Next up in Skirmishing, it's not very often that I go with the Skirmishing line, because normally when I normally run Carrion, as I mentioned earlier, and Skirmishing has a lot to do with Bleed on Crit, but they added some really nice Condi traits to the Skirmishing line, so I feel like it's necessary now for Rangers. The first 3 minor traits are mainly about swapping weapons. We're going to be getting swiftness when we swap weapons. We're going to be getting fury when we swap weapons, and we're going to be doing extra crit chance whenever we're flanking. So this is really nice. It ups our crit chance, gives us swiftness, lets us run around, be more mobile, do more damage. Good minor traits. Sharpened Edges is probably the most important trait to this build. This has no internal cooldown on it, and it is a guaranteed 66% chance every single time you crit to inflict 6 seconds of bleeding. Now, we're going to be critting a lot, and this is going to stack our bleeds really high, especially with the Shortbow, because the Shortbow, it's going to make it so that we bleed whenever we're behind our target. And this trait makes us crit more whenever we're behind our target. And this makes us bleed on crit. So you see where this is all coming together. We're going to be getting a lot of bleed stacks. You can potentially stack like 40 stacks of bleed on your own, but that's like in a vacuum environment, not against the player. A player is probably going to be removing those conditions, evading some of your attacks, blocking, and all that stuff. So you're probably not going to ever see that against the player unless they're stunned and you get some really nice combos on them. But yeah, lots of bleeds, very consistent bleeding, good stuff. The next trait is Hidden Barbs. Makes our bleed do 33% more damage. This is probably the best trait you're gonna get. You know, if you're using a sword and you just really love sword, I mean, Strider's defense is there, but losing that 33% damage on your bleeds is not worth it in my opinion. And then the last trait, Light on your feet. Damage and condition duration is increased after you dodge. And this also reduces the cooldown of Shortbow skills and our arrows pierce. So I'm using Shortbow. This is the trait for me. This is the trait for my build. Quick draw could be an option. You could do some cool stuff with some burning with quick draw if you're not using Shortbow. But for me, I'm using Shortbow. So Light on your feet is the trait I'm taking. Next up, we have Druid. This is the first time that I've ever used Druid in a build on my channel. And I feel it complements this build very nicely. So our first minor trait allows us to use Staff and Astral Force. We're not using a Staff in this build, so that's kind of useless. But hey, you know, the Astral thing is pretty awesome. So I'm going to be activating my heal here, so maybe we can charge it. Is that going to happen? No, whatever. Okay, well anyways, live vicariously. When you heal an ally, you are also healed. This is really nice. 1 second internal cooldown, but it means whenever we're healing our allies on a point using the Celestial Avatar, we're going to be getting some healing for ourselves every other second. Next up, Natural Mender. Increase outgoing healing whenever you heal an ally. This counts towards yourself and your pet, I believe. I know for 100% chance it counts for your pet. So whenever you use your own skill, you'll see in a moment here. There it is. Natural Mending. This stacks. So right now we're up to 5 stacks, 6 stacks, 7 stacks, 8 stacks. So we activate that heal skill and then we get extra healing effectiveness. This goes up to 10. So if we're in our Celestial Avatar form, we'll be getting those stacks up pretty high. And then we can get, what is that, 20% more healing without even using a healing amulet. It's pretty nice. And we're going to be stacking that a lot throughout a fight. The first trait I'm going to take is Druidic Clarity, which is going to make it whenever we activate our Celestial form or Celestial Avatar, we're going to remove 13 conditions, and it's going to break stun. The current meta in PvP, there's a lot of stuns, there's a lot of condis. This trait is a pretty nice counter to that. The other options are definitely worth looking at, except for this one, obviously, because we're not using a staff, but Cultivated Synergy. Using a heal skill heals allies around you and your pet. It's going to be some extra healing. It's a nice option to consider, but I feel the condition remove and the stun break is better. If you're going against a team where you know for a fact that no one's running condition, which is unlikely, but I guess you could go Cultivated Synergy in that scenario. The next trait I'm going to take is Natural Stride. This is going to give us a constant 33% movement increase, and it's going to decrease the effects of Immobilize, Cripple, and Chill by 33% on us. This trait is so good, so good. Like, it makes you run faster, and it reduces things that make you move slower. And on a build where we're trying to get behind our opponents a lot, this trait is so good. As far as the other options go, we're not using any glyphs, but if you are using glyphs, you can get some healing out of it and a reduced cooldown. And then personally, I don't think this trait is worth it. You get stealth and super speed whenever you exit Celestial Avatar. Not really worth it to me, but if that's your playstyle, then go for it. On the last trait, really, you can go with whatever you want here. I'm personally going with Ancient Seeds because, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a lot of people that are stunned or CC'd, whatever. And whenever you attack them, you immobilize them for a short amount of time, 5 seconds, which is actually pretty decent. And then you apply 5 seconds of bleeding, and with all of our Conde duration, that's going to be doing a lot of damage. Now, the other options are decent. Grace of the Land is pretty good. You can increase your own Conde duration, or Conde damage and actual damage, and that of your allies. So that is something to definitely think about. If you're in team fights and you want to make your allies and yourself do more damage, that's an option. And then the other option is Lingering Light. This one is I don't know. It's a decent trait, but it's not really needed. Looking at our skills really quickly, I'm just gonna Conde bomb this thing here, this target golem, just to kind of show you like what you can do in a short amount of time. So like looking at our bleeds right there, that was 30 stacks, and this guy, just with normal autos, we can get him up to almost 25. So yeah, you can get a lot of bleeds whenever you're staying behind your opponent. Pretty nice stuff. And then with the Druid form, as we're healing and stuff, we can keep our allies alive. So this is where the tanky part of the build comes in. It's not really worth using natural convergence unless you have quickness. But yeah. So just know what skills you have do a lot of Conde damage. Also, if you are running Axe Torch, drop the field and use the 2 skill to get some extra burning. And you'll do some burning combos and stuff, and you can get a lot of burning damage, which is nice. But then for the utility skills, I recommend all of these skills that I have currently. Lightning Reflexes is going to stun break for you. It's going to be on the lower cooldown because of our trait. We have Quickening Zephyr is going to stun break, give us quickness, give us super speed, and lower cooldown. Entangle is a must for this build. There's no other option. As far as I have Signet Stone, as far as that goes, you can run Muddy Terrain if you want. You can also run Sharpening Stone. You can choose to run the Sun Spirit if you want more burning. You can choose to run one of the glyphs since we are using Druid. Or the Flame Trap is also another option. But yeah, that's really up to you. And then for the heal, there's no other option than the heal for this build, in my opinion. But yeah, that's going to be it for the build. Really, really nice build for team fights, 1v1s, all of that, because you can keep yourself alive with the Druid and all your survival skills. You can constantly be doing damage to people. Like the thing I like about Conde builds are you put your Condes on your foe, and then you can spend the rest of the time like focusing on your opponent, like dodging their abilities, blocking their abilities, whatever, because you know that they're taking damage. You don't constantly have to be attacking them. You just have to be aware of when to reapply conditions after they use their Conde cleanses and stuff like that. So yeah, that's about it for my Conde tank, in quotes, Druid Ranger build. Tell me what you guys think in the comments, if there's any changes you make. But yeah, that's about it for this build. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Xilicks. See you guys next time. Okay, thanks, bye.